Okay, so you've heard this term before, but maybe you don't have your arms around it yet, or you don't really have your head around it. I didn't. It's called the climate-friendly sustainable nutrition dietary approach. What's it all about? Why the attention? And I'm here from RX Healthy Habits to say that it might affect your eating habits down the road. Because let me tell you, the more research I did on this, because I was so curious, the more I was blown away at how much is just out there about people with narratives that are really promoting this approach to dietary eating, which I was blown away. And now I shouldn't be, because there's a lot of globalists and there's a lot of people with big money like Bill Gates that have a lot of interest in really promoting this particular narrative with the climate change. And it's not something that I'm going to take an opinion on. I have my own opinions about this, but I'm here just to educate you about this nutritional component that I think they're zeroing in on. It's going to be really, you're going to see more and more about it, and more people adopting this as part of their attempt to help with climate change. So judge it any way you want. Just if you do send me comments or whatever, just don't make it hater stuff, okay? Because I'm going to take no stand on this, all right? Just to educate you about the nutritional part. So what is climate-friendly sustainable nutrition? That's a way that you eat that's going to have the minimal impact on the environment, because you're reducing your carbon footprint. So your carbon dioxide per serving of certain foods is going to be lower than the average person. So obviously meat is way up there from cows. That's the highest when it comes to nutrition, climate friendly, and the most carbon produced CO2, the carbon dioxide, comes from cows. So that's why there's kind of like a war on that right now with some people against some of the industry, especially some of the cattle industry, because this has been targeted to be way above all the others. Like chicken's still up there, but obviously dairy, that group is kind of like out, because it takes, you gotta feed the cows so they can get the milk. And then as you go down the list, when you get down to legumes and of course nuts, and when you get down to vegetables, it's much lower, but it's still, everything's got a score, okay? Everything's got a score about how much it affects per serving the carbon dioxide impact. So that, the whole metric tons. You get on an airplane now, before you get on the airplane, you buy your ticket, you look at all the ticket information. They also tell you how much metric tons you're putting out of carbon dioxide in this flight, and can you choose another flight to keep it down. It's all there. It's only going to get more. So opinion, I'm going to stay neutral on this. I have my own, but so what are some of the advantages? Because some of the experts out there said, hey, there's a lot of advantages to this, and let me go through one of them. The biggest advantage for people that are on this type of dietary approach is because they want to reduce their footprint, and they can do that through their food choices. It's true, they can. You can see the data. That's one of the biggest advantages for somebody that chooses this diet, is they're doing it for a reason. Now, locally sourced produce can really help, especially if you're buying it locally, can really help reduce the carbon footprint, because it's not being shipped from everywhere. But eating this way is very good from that standpoint, because you're using more sometimes local type of protein sources, or especially when it comes to protein from plant source, you're doing local if you can. So that's a big thing. That's why I think a lot of people that choose this diet say, I just want to get stuff that I can get that's sustainable, that's not going to take so much to produce. This can be another reason. This is another advantage that the experts tout. Consumption of nutrient-dense foods that are from these sources instead of meat reduce the risk of some chronic diseases. And yes, red meat, saturated fat in red meat's much higher, and you get more saturated and polyunsaturated fats from meats than you're ever going to get from vegetables and legumes and fruits. So that's a health advantage to this type of diet, the climate-friendly diet. The disadvantages of climate-friendly diets. Here's a couple things. Number one, transitioning is going to require some significant adjustments for the individuals accustomed to more meat in their diet and dairy. You're going to be limiting that or really cutting that back, so that's tough. But you have to make some dietary changes. You're going to have to make some adjustments. Number two, certain regions aren't going to have certain things that are produced locally, so you're still kind of adding that extra thing of bringing stuff in. But there's also times like me, we're in the desert, there's not a lot of seafood vendors that come in, so seafood here is really expensive. So when you start transitioning people out of some of these proteins that have a high carbon footprint versus something like fish that's harvested in the sea, it's got a lower footprint, you got costs that start to go up a lot. So Some people, this is a big disadvantage, the taste profiles now, no cheeses, no dairy, no meats, especially beef. You start eliminating a lot of that, then you're, as far as your appeal to your taste start to go down a little bit because you're more limited. But there's still a lot of diversity with fruits and vegetables, and there's other protein sources like tofu and seafood. I get it. There's other ways to get it. So now, here's one of the things. If you're going to transition to a climate-friendly diet, you got to be doing a couple things, and that's most important. Number one, it's going to be a gradual transition, and you got to set some achievable goals. Don't be trying to do this like overnight because you're going to be miserable. You got to transition into it, and you're going to probably have some impact on some of the foods as you transition them out. Just get over it. It's only a short period of time if you're going to go this way. You're going to have to stay updated on the sustainable eating practices and what's going on. And if you're eating something and you find out that it's coming from a long ways away and it's increasing the carbon footprint, you got to stay up on that. So you're going to have to be kind of knowledgeable about the food you're consuming. Meal planning, experimentation with new recipes, ingredients, engagement with local communities, absolutely. To have a smooth transition, you have to do all those things, but especially different ways of preparing food. There's another one. If you're going to transition, celebrate the small wins. You're going to have to stay motivated on this because there's going to be times, there are going to be some challenges. And if you're motivated and you really celebrate the wins, that's great. Now, last thing I'm going to close with this because I don't like long videos and I'm already over time. I don't want to go more than 8 minutes. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about this, and you're going to have to read up on them and be aware of them. But some of the misconceptions is that it's always going to be a lot more expensive. And yes, it's probably going to be more expensive, but it can be done well so that it's not super over expensive compared to what you're doing right now. It might be actually just a little bit moderately higher. Of course, everything's high right now anyway. But to get your protein requirements especially, it might be a little bit more expensive. Convenience and taste concerns deter a lot of individuals from embracing this. That's so true, but that's a challenge. It's a disadvantage, but it's a challenge to the diet. And then here's another one. This is kind of like the big thing. Social and cultural expectations can be a challenge. If you're on the diet or not on the diet, you might end up being judged a little bit. But communication about why or why not you're on this, and it might come up down the road, but if you do adapt this type of style, you just don't want to become like judgy and say, hey, you're killing the world by eating that steak. So, but also conversely, when you go to a party and you're not eating certain things, they ask you why, then hey, it might create a little bit of a social, tension there. So just something to throw out there. So that's just it. That's just a quick overview. Again, go to my blog. It's all in there. There's a lot of good articles in there. But if this is something that intrigues you, find out more about it. But at least if it doesn't intrigue you and it kind of is a turnoff to you, at least understand it. Because people that are into this, you want to at least appreciate and understand what they're doing and why they're not doing certain things if they do dine with you. Okay? So until next video podcast, stay strong, get healthier, get out there, get some exercise, and if you do go down the path of a climate-friendly nutrition approach to eating, just get really educated, and when those around you will probably appreciate the fact that you're educating them, so without being condescending, right? So until next video podcast.